Hello everyone, and welcome to D&D Academy's lesson on the sorcerer's metamagic ability, Twin Spell. To begin, let's read exactly what the feature does. When you cast a spell that targets only one creature and does not have a range of self, you can spend a number of sorcery points equal to the spell's level to target a second creature in range with the same spell. One sorcery point if the spell is a cantrip. To be eligible, a spell must be incapable of targeting more than one creature at the spell's current level. For example, Magic Missile and Scorching Ray aren't eligible, but Ray of Frost and Chromatic Orb are. So from this, we can derive the three main conditions that determine whether or not a spell can be twinned. Firstly, the spell cannot be able to target more than one creature at the casted level. 2. The spell does not have a range of self. 3. The first and second casted targets must be creatures. The important thing to take away is that just because a spell could possibly target an object does not disqualify it from being used here, as long as you are actually only targeting creatures. So the biggest question among these is what it means to be targeted. From pages 202 and 204 of the player's handbook, we can get some information as to what targeting means by reading the sections labeled range and targets. A simple inference can reach the conclusion that whenever you are explicitly choosing something, whether it be a creature, object, or a point, or if the spell explicitly says target, then it will, target. Area effect spells work a little strange according to this definition. Whereas Slow and Fireball do explicitly state that all creatures within the area are targets, Shatter does not. However, one may possibly assume from the wording of the two former spells that any AoE targets all the creatures that it affects. The distinction between effects and targets seems to be the main confusion for certain spells being twinned, such as Dragon's Breath and Ice Knife. Crawford has stated time and time again that these spells cannot be twinned. This is because, despite the spells only explicitly stating they target a single initial creature, in the case of Ice Knife, the one you're making the ranged spell attack against, in the case of Dragon's Breath, the one you're bestowing the ability to, any creature that is affected by a spell, such as in the AoEs created by these spells, count as targets. As we previously discussed, this is what Jeremy Crawford is going with as he's rolling. And indeed, a Sage of Ice did come out, ruling basically this, listing the design intention for twin spells with a checklist to disqualify any potential spell from being eligible. This checklist includes the options that a spell has a range of self, the spell can target an object, the spell allows you to choose more than one creature to be affected by it, the spell can force more than one creature to make a saving throw, and the spell can let you make a roll of any kind that can affect more than one creature. So if a spell qualifies for any of these options, then it cannot be twinned. Whereas previously spells that could target objects were allowed to be twinned, as long as you were using them to target a creature, now they are ineligible, according to this list. The advice also, of course, prevents Dragon's Breath and Ice Knife from being used. Yet, it makes some weird questions arise with other spells that were completely allowed. For example, in the hypothetical situation, if I'm casting Haste on someone that happens to be using a Hammer or Thunderbolts, could it still be twinned? The Hammer could force multiple saving throws by its ranged attack, so at point 4, it could be allowed. If I do, is the player only forced to use that feature as their main action and not use the hasted action for it? But it says can and not will, so it's not well defined. This is one particular example, but there are many other cases where a spell could do something to break one of these rules, even though it was completely allowed to be twinned beforehand. So in summary, the raw is slightly unclear due to targeting and other requirements not being clearly defined, but Firebolt, Ice Knife, and Dragon's Breath could reasonably be allowed. However, the rules as intended, and the Sage of Ice, says that all aforementioned and similar spells are not twinnable according to the 5 qualifying points. So, all in all, we can say that what counts as a target is not incredibly well defined by the base rules, so you should definitely ask or work with your DM, or if you are the DM, come up with a list to decide what works and what doesn't. So my personal ruling is the same 3 we covered before. So the spell cannot be able to target more than one creature at the casted level, a spell does not have a range of self, the spell's first and second casted targets must be creatures, and the only addendum I add is that a target is anything purposely chosen, and for area effects, target only applies to the first target of origin, still requiring that it must be a creature. So I do allow Ice Knife, Dragon's Breath, Firebolt, and similar spells. But all in all, that's all. Feel free to do it as you wish, of course. And anyways, thank you for coming. D&D Academy's class is dismissed.